how much you absorb. It's interesting. It's like a sponge. You know when you have a sponge and it absorbs all that, and you're like, good, because it's got all that soap in it, and you're scrubbing your dishes and you want it to last because maybe you only have so much water or so much warm water. I do that at the trailer. Well, I'm absorbing it, keeping it all in the sponge, and what I can use up. It's the same with our minds and what's in our hearts. I have to say, nobody could pay me enough money. I should be able to fill every bank in this world for how much I know. Not because of who I am, but because what's in the Bible. You see, God is such a genius, and I can't take any credit for anything I know, because all the information that I give to people is from the truth, from the Bible. And there's lots of things I don't know that you could be talking about and I have no idea. So then I go in the Bible and I find the answers. So there's what you call a genius. Probably that's why you will see people who have a genius mind is because they study. It's not because they have ADHD, and it's not because they have high spectrum autism. It's where their mind is set on. Okay? So what do you call abnormal? What do you call above, on, high on the spectrum? What do you call somebody that is in the norm or below or above? Well, it depends how much information you get. So if I lived or I was in a place, in home, or in my own home, or if I was in a group of people or in someone else's home, and I'm absorbing information, that's how much my mind will grow. Okay. So if I take what I have learned and I share it with you, and then someone else gives me more information, what they have learned, and I absorb that in the sponge in my mind, then I absorb it and then I share it with you. And then someone else comes in and gives me information and back it up, and I absorb it and I share it with you. There's many geniuses in this world, but it doesn't make them any better. It's where the heart is. See? But we go on media, and everybody has an agenda of how much information they've absorbed to share out to others, which is absolutely phenomenal, because we want to also be recognized, right? It's the truth. But what if you were doing it because you don't want to see people fall? I know Chase has done this. His committee says, I really don't want to do this. I don't really want to do this radio station thingy, but I'm just seeing too many people get hurt, but it's not where I really, but he ends up doing it. And so when I look at that, and then Elon or Ulysses comes in and go, and shares so much information, and so then everybody starts praising a human being. But it's the information that's actually being praised and where it came from. So if a person is diligent and putting all their hard-earned work into using this good information to help others, they should be paid well, right? So we're not better than them, and we're not below them. It's just what we're willing to learn. Right? So if I came in and I'm sharing the Word of God, the truth, and you're going, wow, where'd you get that information from? You're a genius. No, I'm not. I'm not the genius. I just absorbed it. And when I absorb stuff, after I hear and hear and hear and hear and hear, I'm able to share it. So God is the genius. But if we go into cultures So I wrote about this. Do a lot of writing. I wrote about this, and I traveled across the map in the Bible. Not everywhere, but I was thinking about Chase's podcast just not long ago, because that's what I did. I didn't have a radio station in front of here, but I wrote it from my hand. And what I did was I traveled to those places where there's psyops. I didn't have that word for it, but it was a belief system where people were oppressed, or not oppressed, but everybody's oppressed in a certain way. So what I did was I traveled, and I traveled through the Bible in different places, and from the cultures, and why people were eating their babies, and why people were being enslaved, and why people were men were having sex with other men up their behind and causing harm to women, tearing each other apart because their man was with different men, and the different belief systems and cultures they were brought up into to be obedient, or if they were free of that prison, and how they felt and what they were going through. Well, that's the world, right? It is the world. And as God's watching us all, it's a big story where it comes into a big love story. And it's a big love story. So it doesn't take long for a person to want to be your partner. They will know right away. Well, not right away, but it doesn't take long. Okay. And if they're attracted to you, then you two will come together as one. And that's where people think it's just only in making love. The penis and the vagina, which is a nice representation of that, but together, walking together, side by side. So if a baby is brought up in a culture that they're only allowed to believe a certain belief, and if you go to different places, Korea, China, Japan, Africa, anywhere, United Kingdom, Canada, United States, Cayman Islands, Georgia, no matter where it is, Carolina, and we watch the people as people watchers. I'm going to put the fan on for a second. It's a little bit warm when I'm sitting here too long. And what we speak upon ourselves as well, we become. So if we believe a system, or we're taught in a belief system that you're only allowed to grow so much as a baby, or if you're ignored and you're only taught a little bit, you get called, oh, you have ADHD and you're really below average in learning and da. It's not because the child is really like that. It's the surroundings the person's been in. You know? If we go into the Bible and let's say we wanted to build a computer, that's not my area, but if I wanted to build a computer, all I have to do is go in the Bible and it will teach me. But I'm not interested in that. So, you know, I shared some of that with you in the past, but that's not where my mindset is. So do I want growth mindset with that? Well, I can say, I know you can't do that from there. So it's not because I'm better. So how do I know about these cultures and belief systems and culturalism? And how do I know about spiritualism and Freemasonry and Scientology and all the different beliefs? Well, you don't have to give it a label. You don't really have to give it a label. Is there love in it? Is there any love? So I am the same. You know, I can be Lutheran. I can be Lutheran. I can be Seventh-day Adventist. I can be in any belief that tells me that the Bible says. So I don't really need labels. So people would come to me and say, Rhonda, what are you? What do you mean, what am I? I'm a girl. No, I mean, what do you believe? What's your belief? Well, I believe that I'm a Jesus follower. Oh, what do you mean you're a Jesus follower? And this is the questions I get. Well, how come you don't give yourself a label, though? I said, I just did. I said, I'm a believer. He has risen. Because I can be bits and pieces of many. Well, do you believe in the Sabbath? Yeah, I believe in the Sabbath. Do you believe it's on Saturday? Yes, I believe it's on Saturday. Do you believe it's a grace given? Yes, I believe it's a grace given. Do you believe that you have to fulfill, you cannot transgress the law? Yes, I believe that. Do you believe when you die that you'll be resurrected again? Yes, I do. Do you believe if you don't have the right direction, you'll go to the lake of fire? Absolutely. Because we're all going to be resurrected. Okay? Yeah, I believe. So I had bits and pieces of people, of their culture, and their belief system. But I'm not here to put it on a label. I'm just here to tell the truth. So if I go, well, God, really, I mean, I had how much I've learned from you. I should have every bank in the world filled with money for me, but it's not mine. But it, for it, so that someone else can use it, because there's no way a person could use that much money. So other people could use it, to eat. And the only reason that people ate babies, and they're still doing it or going back to it, is because of a culture, a belief system that has oppressed to steal, kill, and destroy, that they're hungry and they got to eat. And why is it they have cannibalism? And why is it people that have eaten people have said that it tastes like chicken? Well, I don't want to know, but we do know, we hear that from people. It's because they were starving. And the only reason this is happening is because of a belief system from a culture. So we go up on a ladder, we climb a ladder to get things done, to reach the top. When we learn about hunger of wanting more than the other person, to be better than the other person. So we crunch some toes or crunch some fingers while they're climbing. Might pull a leg or step on their fingers. And because trying to race to get there. It's like that song, Winner Takes It All. Well, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in that. So I had that thrown at me too many times. Well, you have to suffer. You have to suffer to have winner takes it all. Well, that's spiritualism. So I don't need any of that. If my partner is wealthy or not wealthy, I have a partner. I think I'm not too bad looking, and I think I'm pretty happy with who I am, and I make a choice that I would make him happy and he would make me happy by building each other up. It's the same way. Because we're not pulling each other's legs down and we're not stepping on our fingers, and our pride hasn't gotten in the way, and we don't have to be a phony. So when I get on here at TTK Mass, I'm not better than you. And I'm not better than anyone. I just like to study. Always have. And then sometimes I forget some things, so I have to go hear it again and go study again. And I go into the spiritual book because God didn't lie. He said if I have His Spirit and I believe, and He said His word is Jesus, that I would understand what the word says. So I took Him for His word. Jesus. And that's what happened. And that's why I was able to share what I do share. Or what I can share, or what I would like to share. And guess what? We're all great performers, every one of us. Like, we go into being an actor. But we're born actors in our cultures, in our belief systems. We're pretty good actors. But if we want to put on a charade or make our families look perfect, we do a family perfect photo. Well, I'm not very good at that. I failed in that area because I didn't want to mask it. Sometimes, though, if there's something on my face or on my hair and I want nobody to see, I try to hide it, but it doesn't work out so well. And that's where Smule comes in. because it kind of gives you a different look. But be honest with you, this is me. And every one of us, guess what? When I travel through the Bible all over the world, and all over, does not matter where you live, you and I are related. Somehow, one way or another, from the very beginning. So that means every one of us were formed from the dirt of clay that God beautifully and fearfully made. So I go, wow, you're my family. Like, we're all genetically family. But the problem is, if you are brought up somewhere across the world and it told you to cause division, and that is the belief system, and kept you inside that box, and then you're no longer a free agent. Geez, what is a free agent? I never used that terminology before, but I have a choice of who I am. I have a choice, I have a will. And guess what? In sociology you're taught that, but it says it in the Bible. In the Bible it tells me I can be whoever I want, do whatever I want after He's created me, and fall into traps. It's a choice. Or somebody sneaks up behind me and oppresses me and tries to mold me their direction and tries to put their belief, spiritualism on me. It goes to show from the source what it has done to a person. And it's not minding their own business. And it's called brainwashing. When you read the Bible, you get brainwashed. It brainwashes you into purity. It cleanses your mind and your insides. So if I took my head off my body right now, my body wouldn't know how old it is. It wouldn't know anything. But when I put my head back on my body, from my brain says, hey, you know what? This is what I say. Your prefrontal cortex is 30 years old because you are fully developed at 30, but the rest of you is 20. Why? Because I told my body so. Okay? So my body, it does not know any difference. Okay? It doesn't know any difference. And then when you go to pain, your body reacts to it, right? And then it changes the position of how old you say you are. Because it's flesh. But God beautifully and fearfully made it. So if you go from the ages growing up, we go into a psychology with youth and child. And, you know, people offer me jobs, but they say, oh, you haven't got a master's. Well, I did my studies at home. Thank you. And I have a lot of little different labels, but I master in studying. That's what I master in. And when I master in study, I put it into action. So it doesn't mean, I might not have like the paper that says I have my master's, but I have a master in studying. So this way, when I put it in action, I'll know what I'm doing. And where I get my information is from different people, and I go back it up to see if it's in the Bible. Yeah. It's healthy. It's healthy. So that's my target. So my source is from the Bible. My target is from the Bible. The truth is from the Bible. And it's all love. So if I went to, that's why, you know, if I go to Iran and I meet people there, and I go to Iraq, and I go to Arabia, I go to Africa, all over, everywhere in Africa, and then I hit the islands. I come back to Canada, what a difference, and then I go back over to the USA, what a difference. It's why it's the culture in what we believe. So, and a person that is underdeveloped isn't really underdeveloped, just in the position they're in at that moment because of the environment or the culture, the belief system. Or I can be a genius in areas where teachers want to take me and put me in a class with other geniuses is because they study. Their brain is ready to absorb like that sponge. That's why you will not see some people will not go do an IQ test, or they don't even try to pass it because they don't find any need for it. So if I take my children, my girls, and I kept them in the space where it was unhealthy, that is their belief system, right? So they don't have no more growth. Once they're out of that box and they go into another area, they start getting more growth. They're no longer underdeveloped in a lot of areas, right? So we can go through all the ages and how our brain is formed and how our heart is made and developed, or how we can have it changed, or the skin color of us, no matter what. KKK is the reason why they believe what they believe, because they're stuck inside a box. So they are told that blacks are no good, but guess what? They're related to you. If I went to that area, my skin would get that dark too. Then I'm seeing people from there come here and their skin peel back. Yeah. So if you're on the culture, so if I was Japanese, my skin would be browner. And if I was African, I can either have an oval-shaped head, a round-shaped head, a more bulged forehead, or I could have a nose that's more widespread or narrow. But if you come to Canada, you can too. Just different color, the culture. Now, because they're starving in certain areas, not starved, we're starved of truth. So then their culture, they just do what they want because God gave you a choice and a will. Because of social justice society, that's what happened with Herod and Pharaoh and them, because they were ignorant into stupid, into insanity, because even Herod thought that John the Baptist was the Messiah. And so he had his head chopped off. But he wasn't the Messiah. But because he stayed inside that box of pride, he didn't go to find out the truth, and he didn't care. Or when so John the Baptist, he was just showing us in the Bible that he baptizes by water, but he can't make it holy. But he's telling us what's to come and to repent. And then Jesus comes along and he humbles himself before John. No. Baptize me in the water. It's humbleness. So he's not telling him he's any better. He goes into humbleness. The Spirit comes upon him like a dove. So then it shows us from old to new that, we're now can be reborn spiritually. We don't have to be baptized by water. And to repent, we can now do it with the Lord, with His Spirit, which connects to His Word is equals Jesus. And that's why Jesus is our mediator. But let's say I had a position in Catholicism, and I was in there and I stepped outside their box. And I go in here and I say, well, look, the Bible says this. Everyone, this is what I've learned from Catholicism. This is what I've learned from the Bible. So then it doesn't make me a genius, because God's a genius, and in His Word it speaks truth. So there's balance in the Word. There's complete alignment. So then we all talk about, well, the psyops, the oppressions, restorative justice, and how we should bring up our children. And then if we misconfigure the word, or if we twist it up, make it really disgusting, and you hear about, well, to the man, he says, well, I grabbed my rod and pulled my children in and gave it to them. That isn't what it means. That rod is a beautiful love story of how he brings you in gently with love and restores you and loves you with kindness and restores you in discipline and truth in a healthy way. He doesn't want you lost. He didn't say tear them up, make them lost. So as I traveled through, and I found out when heaven would happen, and with the angel, which was God, and Jesus up there, and there he's fighting for us because of pride. So he knew what was going to happen to Adam and Eve, but he can't change his word. He couldn't change. If we change his word and we say that only certain people are chosen, well, that's going to really suck, because then God would have to change his word. And then if we say we got to take away the law because he is risen, then we have to say God doesn't follow his word. And if I'm only going to go up to a person, and I went up to my daughter and she wasn't ready to believe, it's not her time, that's between her and God. And I said, oh no, you're chosen, you have to. No matter what, I don't care. What would happen is called pushing away. Just like if you're not attracted to each other, we turn away. And you hear about that by Joan Navarro. And this is all in the Bible. Okay? It's all in the Bible. So, if we force, it causes pain. And if we force, it causes oppression. And division. And a lot of heartache. And a lot of brainwashing. And that is not who God is. And some of you might not care right now, but I want to tell you, what you're going through is not about God if it's horrible. It's about man. And we fall into these traps, and we are told to do what the culture or the person that brought us up. What if that person brain was damaged in a horrible way, or stuck in that psyop, in that McDonaldization or that science project, and they used it on you, and they didn't know any better than that person? It just kept on going. It's sin, 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 sin. But if I did all that, we're making God out to be telling him that he doesn't give us the grace, and that he tells us to break the law, it's okay, get rid of it, that he's a monster. And if we say we only could do deeds, then he's a monster too, because what's the point of having Sabbath of the grace given? But he said, make that day holy. So he says, make it holy. Scratch my back. He lifts me up. And when you divide, it's because of man. I want you to know that. I want you to know that God would never ever do that to you. God would never ever ever divide you up. God would never make you sit in a corner. God would never take away your family. God would not tell you to do anything that's horrible. He would not tell you in his book for you to be part of that book in a horrible way. What it is, the whole book. Ladies and gentlemen, you can build airplanes in there, in cars. You can do mathematics and English and all the history, and every science project you want is in the Bible, in those 66 books. But it's what your interest is. So you learn a little bit here, line for line, precept upon precept. So I could have a pastor who said, look, because you said this, here, Rhonda, here's your papers to be a pastor, or here's your papers to be a philosopher, or here's your papers to be a psychologist, or a psychiatrist, or some kind of scientist, or a history teacher, or whatever it may be. But it all comes from the Bible. And when you see actions of stupidity, and stealing and hiding stuff, playing the game, that's called a psyop. Don't you want to be released? Though these games is trickery. So if you don't know it now, you do now. You've heard the word. Back it up. And once you hear it, I ask you just to reflect on that. Because God is love. He is a love story. So I don't believe in ADHD, attention deficit. It's kind of like a culture or a belief system. Just because someone is very active or stuck in, or maybe they're lashing out in because of something that's going on around them at school, home, or whatever it may be. But once they're outside that box, they grow out of it. That's like us. We're born into sin. We're transformed into sin in a lost world. And then all of a sudden we get a growth mindset from truth. By knowing the truth and having us change so we can grow. If I would have known now what I know now, which we always talk about, every one of us, but we didn't know. So if I would have known what I know now, I wouldn't have had a hysterectomy. I wouldn't have had my nose done. I wouldn't have my ears done. I wouldn't allow them to touch me the way I allowed it. But I believed men because I was in a dangerous area, and they said that was the only way to be done. Right? There's certain parts of your body do grow back, and certain parts that don't. So maybe you didn't have the money, and someone used you for a science project. That's the way I'm going to use it. And they took all your good stuff away, and you had to live off sugars. And what happens? You get very sick. And they know it. They know it. That's why they do it. You don't need to be a science project for anybody to understand that. It's all in the Bible. See, some people, if they're still stuck in that culture or belief system, they think that maybe you're naive or you're stupid or you don't have enough information in you because you're being humble and you're being kind and caring and loving. Doesn't make you stupid. It does not make you where you don't know your self-worth. Except you just want to be that way because it's a choice. And when His Spirit's in you, He takes you down that path. And it's a horrible thing that you have to pull out your trigger to have to stomp on somebody to stop them from doing harm. Because that is not love. And when you withhold funds or somebody else's funds and make them go hungry because of a psyop, because of a belief system that has been brainwashing you or threatened you and scared the bejeebies out of you, that person's mind, you have to ask yourself, where are they? Either they've had brain damage or they're in deep darkness. Deep darkness is brain damage. It is. Drinking is deep brain damage. Drugs is deep. And what happens is when it's stopped and it gets some light, that mess starts clearing up. And it gets better. And it starts healing. It starts growing. But you have to be willing. I could go on and on and on. Why we do this and why we don't do that. Why we have our own views. Why we all want to be right when we should do what's right. Why Chase has a radio broadcast going now. As I've been following him to find out what he's up to. And I remember the talk he had pain in his face because I had messaged. He had pain in his face to know that people are being hurt. But he's not God. He can't do everything by himself. Joe Navarre can't do everything by himself. Or Scott. Or myself. Or Elon, Ulysses. Any of us. None of us can do it by ourselves. We need fellowship, which means we need other people to come in and help each other out with love. And that's why when they have enough information, they're not going in to tear anybody up. They want to build you up. They want to make you at home. And when you make somebody at home, you're relaxed. It's like when I go dancing, the firemen know it. That relieves stress, but it also helps me exercise and get some weight off me. It sure does. But it also strengthens everything in my body. But it strengthens my mind and it makes my heart happy. So they will drive by and honk because they know And so when you do something positive, it removes the negative. So I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, God has made every one of us to want to be a genius. But there's nothing a pig can ever give us that gives us that love from it, where it came from. Because if anything happens, who else is getting it? It's not keeping it. And what's really sad is why someone would want to do that. And it's because they have been stuck, or they have been tricked, or that pride gets in the way. Now, that's not taking away leadership from husband and wife, because husband and wife isn't better than each other. They walk beside each other, not one behind the other. So that's where the jealousy is gone. That's where the love comes in. You become mates and you become sexually active together. And that's intercourse, holding hands, kissing, touching, and caressing. And then you do it in your care of every day, keeping your house clean, washing your car, going to work, nurturing. And when you put on some nice clothes and it's clean, it changes your whole way you feel inside. And men feel like these princes, and the women feel like princesses. It's how we take care. So if the prince comes in and he's wearing nice clean clothes, and they don't have to be glamorous, but they're clean, how does he feel? He feels pretty good. And if the princess comes in and she's wearing something pretty that she likes, and she feels good, they both feel really good, don't they? And then they walk together side by side. And walking side by side is better than one in front of the other, isn't it? So he isn't walking in front of her, and she's not walking in front of him. But they're walking together hand in hand. See, it's not about the number. Like I said, my brain tells me I'm 20. My frontal cortex tells me I'm 30. It's fully developed. But it's how much I learn. And how much I'm willing to grow. And that's God's love. And it doesn't make me the genius. God is a genius. He's a genius at everything. He's a genius in alignment. He's a genius that I can just be me, and I have flaws. And my partner has to be okay with it, though. He has to be okay with it. He has to be okay with me making mistakes and learning. And he has to be okay that sometimes I cry and sometimes I laugh. And he has to be okay that I love children and that I love animals. But he has to be okay that I love him and that he loves me back. And it's called fellowship. It's becoming one. And when you become one, it's the most magical love story that God gives us out of his books. So I want to thank you all that are teaching in psychology on the different behaviors and why people are used labels. But if those people weren't living in that culture or in that belief system and come outside the box, they wouldn't be there anymore. Because if God changed the heart, that's removed, which fixes the mind. And we're the ones that damage ourselves. And then we need to be cleaned and fixed up. That's love. That's love. And the same with restorative justice. Restorative justice? Restorative justice, I've never seen it much here in Canada. But I have seen it on some islands where I studied, and I have seen it a few places in the States. And what they do is, it's a course, it's a free course. I took it at Christian Leaders Institute. And I got my papers in it. And it's a lot of fun because It teaches me how I can help restore my relationship with my children, with my partner, with my neighbors, and with others. And then you go into Peace, Fire, and Wildfire about why there's so much wildfire and why we really need peace fire and what gases come from a tree if you go to science and why it starts on fire. It's not because man put it on fire. It's because that's what gas builds up in the tree when it's too dry. The thing is, it's all about learning. So, I think, well, geez, I'm renting right now. Well, geez, neighbor, I have enough geniuses in me from the Bible to be a trillionaire. But I don't get any of the glory of it. God does. The more I learn, the more I grow. But if I don't exercise it, if there's other things that are trying to distract me, because it's very dangerous to multitask. So if you have, and these scientists know it, so if you have too much distraction, you're trying to focus, what happens? You lose your way. So you go, they can do this one, but how am I supposed to do this and this and this? You can't. You can't. Even though you want to, you can't. You lose focus. So then I have to stop it. Why Pearson doesn't get upset about that part anymore? Because there's nothing they can do about it. There's no point in pushing back on a place that you didn't create. There's nothing you can do about it. It's the source that has to fix that. And it gets very painful. And it shouldn't be. And then that person mustn't think you're worth. Because they don't have no worth inside them. And once they find out that there's love for them, their whole life changes. And that's unity. And I don't mean all different beliefs believe in this different things as unity. I mean the only true God that is love, that gives unity, that changes our hearts and transforms our minds. And the reason why this world hasn't been doing it because they're Herods. Because they're ignorant and they stayed there because of pride. Because then the leadership would be taken away from them and they'd have to give that leadership to God. And give Him the glory and not themselves. That's the truth. But those people, just like me, have a choice. And we have a will to make a decision what we want. Or what we choose that we need. Well, that's who God is. Well, that's all I have to really say, because I could talk. I love talking, because I think if we send out a clear message across the map, it's about helping each other out. We'd live better lives. Thank you for listening at this podcast of TTK Miles, Feed from His Basket. And God bless. Back it up.